Okay, good evening and welcome to this section on Israeli poetry written since October 7th, 2023. First of all, to understand the poetry that's been coming out, you have to understand a bit about the culture of Israel. Israel, as a culture, as a cultural setting, has a great love for poetry. In a way, the way America had in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, when there were prominent poets like Frost and Sandburg and others that were very prominently displayed, not just in the intellectual community, but in the general community. And if you remember, and I'm sure you do, in school, we were asked to memorize poems, something that hasn't been going on for a very long time in America. My kids were not required to memorize poems, grandkids are not. So, we have a different view of poetry. In America, what takes the place of poetry is music, particularly rap music and pop music that expresses the feelings of the younger generation. And if you took the time, which most of us don't, to look at the lyrics that are in the rap music and hip hop music, you would see deep expressions of their anxiety, their feelings, their opinions. But it's not seen as poetry. One of the interesting things that happened in the world is when Bob Dylan was given the Nobel Prize for Literature. When you think about it, Bob Dylan wrote songs, right? He didn't write poems. In Hebrew, the word for song and poetry is the same. It's shira or shir. So whether it's a poem or it's a musically set poem, a song, it is the same. And in Israel, they have a great love for poetry and music, and they express themselves that way. And they do it particularly during crises times and following the crisis. So I'm going to share with you one of the most famous crisis poems. I didn't give it to you yet, but I'm going to share it on screen now. It's a poem that was written during the Independence Day War by Natan Alterman. It's called The Silver Platter. It's such a famous poem that when it came out, and by the way, you'll see how it's kind of critical of the government and the war. David Ben-Gurion had it published in all the newspapers. He had it printed and given to every single soldier in the IDF because he believed it was an important lesson for them, those who were fighting the war. So I made it nice and big. So we have, Bobby, you want to start by reading?
Certainly. Grows still, crimson skies dimming, misting, slowly paling again over smoky frontiers. As the nation stands up, torn at heart, but existing to receive its first wonder in 2,000 years. As the moment draws near, it will rise. Darkness fading, stand straight in the moonlight in terror and joy. When across from it step out towards it slowly pacing in plain sight of all, a young girl and a boy. Dressed in battle gear, dirty shoes heavy with grime, over on the path, they will climb up while their lips remain sealed. To change garb, to wipe brow, they have not yet found time, still bone weary from days and from nights in the field, full of endless fatigue and all drained of emotion. Yet the dew of their youth is still seen on their head. Thus, like statues, they stand stiff and still with no motion and no sign that will show if they live or are dead. Then a nation in tears and amazed at this matter will ask, "Who are you?" And the two will then say with soft voice, "We are the silver platter on which the Jews' state was presented today." Then they fall back in darkness as the day's nation looks, and the rest can be found in their history books.
Okay. So here we have this, it's not a glorious vision, right? It's a mixed vision of something exciting and important is happening, but there's a great sadness in the poem about the sacrifice. And it's the young boys and young girls that will be sacrificing themselves. And they are presented as if the silver platter, the nation is given on a silver platter, right? It's not a silver platter, it's a bloody, muddy, grimy, difficult platter that creates the state. So here you have right at the beginning of the state that tone of a poem that is given to every soldier and everyone in the state. They all know this. Many of them memorized it when they were in school. It is to say the silver platter. Everyone in Israel knows it. Even those who go to school now know this poem. And it's kind of a way that they view war, right? War is not glorious. War is not a joy. You're not doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it because it's your duty and because the end result is to keep the state and your people safe. Any comments on that?
Is this from the original establishment of the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Right at the beginning, during the War of Independence.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it seems like a silver platter is like I can't think of the word, but it's not a silver platter. Is that like satire? It's hard work.
It's irony. There's irony here, but
right.
it's still what he's saying is you in the future. Remember, the silver platter is these young men and women who gave you the state. Don't ever forget that's the silver platter. Because look, Israel today, strong state. There are still silver platters every day that are paying the price, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now we don't see their names, but in Israel, hello, Roger, welcome. But in Israel, on the front page of every newspaper are the pictures of every soldier that died that day, and there are stories, and it's in the news. That's what they see every day. Okay, now I want to take us to one other poem from before this present battle, present war. This is by Yehuda Amichai. And Yehuda Amichai wrote a number of poems about kind of war. And this has to do with the weariness of having to fight a war that never ends. And we should remember that. Israel, when we studied world history, we studied the 100 Years' War, we studied the 30 Years' War. So Israel is presently in a war that has lasted for basically almost 100 years. One can say from 1929, at least, until today, the war has continued. It's had breaks, it's had downtimes, it's had less war than more war at certain points, but that war has never stopped. It just keeps coming up in different forms. So here's what Yehuda Amichai says. Norma, you want to do this one?
Oh, I can't do it because the print is too small for me.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
Roger
Can you see it?
could.
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let the Memorial Hill remember. Let the Memorial Hill remember instead of me. That's what it's here for. Let the park in memory of remember. Let the street that's named for remember. Let the well-known building remember. Let the synagogue that's named after God remember. Let the rolling Torah scroll remember. Let the prayer for the memory of the dead remember. Let the flags remember those multicolored shrouds of history. The bodies they wrapped have long since turned to dust. Let the dust remember. Let the dung remember at the gate. Let the afterbirth remember. Let the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens eat and remember. Let all of them remember so I can rest.
Right.
Yehuda Amichai. Wow.
Right. So, we're a people of memory. And all of these things that he's listing out are ways that we memorialize those who've died. But what he's saying is, I don't want to remember anymore. This is too much. Let me just rest. Let me just not have to remember more, right? There comes a time, and that's one of the notions, that we don't want to make war. We don't want to have to keep fighting. We don't want our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to keep going to fight the war. But we have to, and we have no choice. Okay, so I'm going to stop share for a minute. Any comments on those two poems? Any thoughts?
Well, since I just came in on the last one, it's
Yeah.
very powerful stuff like they've had enough. I was speaking to somebody today that said, I'm just happy I can still remember my name. And that's on top of the everyday grind that you have to do.
Right, right.
I don't know how they can do it. I see it as hopeless. I keep thinking back to the Zionist convention when they were offered Uganda. And would that not have been better than this?
Yeah, would it? I don't know. But the reality is, there probably, had they taken Uganda, there would not be a state of Israel. That is, it would have attracted nobody.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
Who would have gone there? The European refugees wouldn't have gone there. They weren't going in the heart of Africa. They were convinced to go at least to a land they understood was part of our tradition, and that made some sense to them. So let me see if I can. Here's the poems written after October 7th. Now, I want you to understand the big difference. We all know it. But in today's world, these poems came out literally the day after October 7th. They began appearing on social media because we have social media, right? All the other wars, 56, the War of Independence, 56, Six-Day War, 73, Lebanon, there was no internet. There was no social media. There weren't cell phones. Some of these poets are soldiers on the front line in Gaza and now in Lebanon, who in their downtime are writing poems and posting them. These young people, mainly, these soldiers, are writing poems about their life in real time. And there's a book, I want to show it to you. It's called Shiva, just came out. Most of these poems come from there. Rachel Corazine is the editor. It's in Hebrew and English. And this already came out, and it's filled with poems selected But if you go on Rachel Corazine's website, there are hundreds of poems that have been written that are really powerful, as we will see. The other thing I want to say before we move on is you all know, because you're all students of Torah, that Hebrew does not translate exactly into English, right? They're two very different languages. So, for instance, proper education, no proper education. So if we look at the Hebrew, ein chinuch. You know, chinuch is education, like what you study in school. That's chinuch, right? By the way, you may recognize another form of chinuch, Chanukah.
Oh,
It's the same three roots, three letters, right? Hanukkah is a form of education, rededication, right? Re-instituting, re-teaching. Okay, ein chinuch. But if you look at it, chinuch is not school learning in Israel. It's the way children are raised. Chinuch is the way parents instruct their children, not just formally, but informally. Chinuch is the way parents want their kids to grow up. Okay? So, Joni, maybe you can read this one. I'll put you up higher. Yeah. Okay.
Tel Aviv, today's kids have no education or discipline. You say to them, take care, don't be a hero, and they do what they please.
Okay, so it's very short, but it has a lot in it. I'm going to do it real quickly. Why Tel Aviv? Why do you think it's Tel Aviv and not Jerusalem or Kiryat Shmona or Ashkelon?
Because it's a modern Israel incarnate. It's a new world.
Okay, so it's modern Israel incarnate a new world. Why else?
Probably less historically known than Jerusalem or some of the other places.
All right, it has less history, only a century or more. Anything else? What do we know about Tel Aviv? What do you know culturally about Tel Aviv?
It has a lot of culture.
What? Roger, what?
It's a very fast city, very open. What I hear is that the kids from Tel Aviv don't want to serve in the army.
There you
They're
go.
dodging the draft. They do not.
Well, that was the rap on them. That, in
Yes.
the last year, when all the protests were going on, the rap was these Tel Aviv kids are spoiled. All they are in it for is themselves. They don't care about the state. They're not interested in serving. They just want to get on their cell phones, high tech, make money, and leave. Right? And what happened? And what happened? October 7th, and all of these Tel Aviv spoiled kids showed up on the front lines, and they're the ones that have been fighting, both in Gaza and in Lebanon and on the West Bank, ever since it started. All of them. The pilots that protested and said we would not show up, right? They were there at their base on October 7th. All of them, all these high-tech guys. So what is the mother and father saying to their kids in Tel Aviv?
Don't be a hero.
Don't be a hero. Don't risk your life. And they, what do? They risk their lives. They don't listen. They don't listen. They become patriots. They risk everything. And many of them died. This is one of the, I've said this word in a number of classes in Hebrew, hitpakachti, I sobered up. In Israel, they say it because all of these presuppositions that they had before the war were blown away. This was one of them. The belief that the next generation isn't up to the task. The next generation won't be there for us. They're not like the pioneers. They're not heroes. And they all are out there, and they have sobered up. Everybody knows and they honor these young people who are on the front line fighting as diligently as any generation. Okay, any comments on that one?
The older generation also, I assume they are participating, or is it mainly the younger ones?
It's only those who are still in what are called miluim, the reserves, which normally means for men up into their mid 40s, and women usually up till late 30s, depending on the units they're in. Everything depends on the units they're in. You know, part of the problem, so when I've learned from military people, is for every combat soldier on the front line, you need 7 soldiers to support that soldier, right? You need a medic, you need a cook, you need someone to take care of the uniforms, you need someone for logistics, you need someone who's checking out the internet and finding where the vulnerability is. You need someone, I mean, it's a whole group of people behind every soldier. And for every pilot, there are like 20 other soldiers backing up that pilot, right? So they are all fighting, but they are fighting at different levels. But the combat people mostly have been veterans in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And as we saw with the 4 19-year-olds that were killed in the dining hall a week ago, they're the new recruits. They're still calling up their new recruits, and they are training them. And by the way, Sinwar was found by largely a group of fairly new recruits that were all about 20 years old, who had been pulled out of their training to go on a mission with a couple of other leaders, a commander group, and they were the ones that engaged them, Sinwar, and killed him.
Here.
Yes, Joni.
But those who are too old, I don't like to use that word, but who don't qualify for the reserves anymore are doing a lot of other things that are important. They're picking the crops and
Right.
you know, taking care of businesses that you know,
Yeah.
where people who are in the reserves have to leave their businesses.
And taking care of families.
Right.
You know, there are these wonderful stories. So, I mean, I've used this before, but when I landed, I was there with Rabbi Pomerantz 5 weeks after October 7th. And I landed at Ben Gurion. I got into cab, and the guy who was driving me was like in his late 50s. And I asked him, we were talking in Hebrew, and I asked him, you know, what's going on with your family? And he said, I was in Gaza yesterday. And I said, what do you mean you were in Gaza? You know, he's obviously not a soldier anymore. He said, well, my buddies and we bought 200 kilos of meat. We drove down to Gaza. We set up a barbecue, and we were cooking for the soldiers. And then he said, tomorrow we're going to do it again. Now, he actually went into Gaza where the fighting was going on to cook for the soldiers. Where would that happen in the world? What army would let an old 58-year-old with meat show up and cook? But that is what's going on. So there is a huge support among the people, even whether they're older or younger. They're all doing stuff. They're all active. When I say all, obviously not all. You know, the Haredi community is praying and studying Torah, and they believe that is effective. And I'm happy they believe that. I have trouble with it, but okay, it's not my problem. It's Israel's. They have the Arabs, the Arab Israelis mostly don't volunteer, though the Bedouin still do, and a number of them have died in this war. The Druze still do, and a number of them have died in this war, not just on October 7th, but in the war itself. So, any other comments before we go to this?
Do the modern Orthodox contribute and go to war?
Sure. Oh, yeah. The modern Orthodox go to war. All the modern yeshivot, they send their kids into the corps. Many of the officer corps comes out of the settlements or out of the Dati community, not the Haredi community, and not the Hasidic community, but the Dati community, the Orthodox. Yeah, they do serve, and they serve valiantly. So how do you serve? So this is here you have this guy Nathaniel, who is a combatant at the paratroopers commando unit, meaning he wrote this from the front lines, and he posted it. Okay, who are we up to, Bobby?
Really fight. In order to really fight, you have to forget your beloved, forget your children, forget all you loved and left behind. In order to really fight, you have to remember. Remember your beloved, remember your children, remember all you loved and left behind. Remember, Zachor, and forget.
Right. How else do you fight? Because these are, remember, most of them are not more than 3 or 4 hours from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them live in the heart of the country, and they're down in Gaza. You can make that drive in about 4.5, 5 hours with no traffic. And there isn't a lot of traffic these days, except for military. You can get down there pretty quickly. And north, you can get to the north in the same amount of time. So they're not far from home, but they can't think about home. They have to forget. But they also have to remember who they're fighting for. Right? You have to do both. So you have to be able to live with both parts. But when you're really fighting, you can't think about home. Right? Because that will lead to a mistake, sloppiness, and potentially death. You can't do that. So you have to separate, you have to compartmentalize. And I would argue that all of Israeli society is compartmentalizing. That is how they are living day to day. And they've been doing it now for a year. By the way, if you look at the Hebrew, just look at the last letters. You'll see in the second, it's ahuvatcha, right? It's so kedei lilachem be'emet alecha lishkoach. Second line, see it? Lishkoach et ahuvatecha, lishkoach et yeladecha. So there's a rhythm that we don't get. Lishkoach et kol ahavotecha. We don't get that rhythm in English. Right? There's a rhyme. There's an internal kind of beat that we don't get in English, but it is in Hebrew. There's just no way to make that translation. Joni, you had something?
No.
Okay, another form that the Israelis use always is they play on the stories of our people, and they write a new form. So here we have a corporal who is a non-commissioned officer, and he is in the Nativ education program in Elon. So he's serving in some capacity. His name is Shachar, and he wrote this about the Akedah. Tell me what you know about the Akedah, Akedah Yitzchak.
The story of Abraham and Isaac, right?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So he's going to take that story and he's going to put it onto what's going on this year. Right? And remember, every Israeli, when they grow up, they take Bible as literature in their school. They all know the Bible stories, but they know them in the original Hebrew. So you're going to see echoes here of our story, and I'll point them out to you. Okay, who's up now? Roger, you want to try it?
Sure. Like his father, Ishmael is holding fire and knife, and there is no one to say, do not raise your hand to the boy, and there is no angel to cry from heaven. Now I know you're not a God-fearing man. There is no one, not an angel, not a seraph, only a strong hand sent forward. Just a mother begging, do not do anything to him. And you did not spare, do not do anything to him, and you did not spare. I am the ram in the thicket caught in a bitter land, flowing with milk and honey. I am the one wishing for a sacrifice to replace her sons. I am the strong arm. I am Sarah, who got up in the morning and Isaac was gone.
Okay. So what do you see about this that jumps out at you?
Really sad.
Yeah, it is very sad.
Ishmael is taking on the role of the slaughterer.
Of
And-
Abraham.
Yeah, right. The roles are reversed in a
Right.
way.
And who is Ishmael?
The father of the Arab people.
Right. Right. So ostensibly the father of Hamas. Right. Ishmael. And look and think about what we know about Ishmael. Ishmael's father is the same father that we have. Right? Avraham Avinu. Abraham, our father. Ishmael would say the same thing. So here we are, brothers, if you will, but it's Ishmael, our half brother, who is holding the knife over his half brother. Right? It's a brother wanting to slaughter and, in fact, slaughtering a brother. And there's no one there that says, stop. Because we have the angel who says, Abraham, Abraham, don't put your hand against him. Don't do anything. And here it says, the strong hand sent forward. Do not do anything to him. But he didn't get spared. Right? So who's the ram in the thicket?
The Israeli.
Well, think about the Nova Festival and the scenes that you might remember from the fleeing young Israelis hiding in bushes and being found.
Yeah.
It's a bitter land flowing in milk and honey, but it's also flowing in blood. Right? Yeah, John.
Isn't it also an indictment in a way of the lack of response from the government? There's no one.
Right.
There's no one answering my cry.
Right.
The army didn't come. Nobody came except,
Individuals came.
people.
Right. People came there as heroic individuals, but the army didn't show up for at least the whole day into the night, and they weren't there in force until the next morning. Yeah. So here you have this poem that takes our tradition, turns it on its head, and it brings us to Sarah. Well, in our story in the Bible, in the Torah, where is Sarah at the end of the story?
Dead.
Dead. Right, Johnny. She's dead. According to our tradition, the next verse that's called Chaye Sarah. It's about the death of Sarah. right? Here, Sarah gets up and Isaac is gone. Okay.
But wait, she wasn't dead then?
Well, according to the Midrash, she died while they were up on the top of the mountain.
Oh, I got it. I got it. According to the Midrash, but not in the Torah
Torah
itself.
doesn't tell us. All it tells us is Isaac is saved. He leaves. Abraham returns to Beersheba. And then the next portion is about the death of Sarah. So the
Gotcha.
rabbi said, why is that? Because Sarah died while they were up there.
A broken heart.
Of a broken heart. Satan appears to her and tells her that Abraham is killing their son. And she drops dead of a broken heart. Yeah, according to our traditional text, that's the way it's understood. So here we have Mom is Always Right, which sounds like a really nice poem, right? Don't be fooled. It's not. Okay, Joni, you want to do Mom is Always Right?
Sure. Mom said that when I grew up, there would be no army. Mom was right. I haven't yet grown up, and already there was no army. It wasn't there when I heard the screaming outside. It wasn't there when I saw Dad so scared and stressed. It wasn't there when the door was kicked in. It wasn't there when I hid under the bed. It wasn't there when we three pushed back on the door of the safe room. It wasn't there when time just stood still. It wasn't there when they suddenly entered. It wasn't there when they tore Dad off Mom. Mom had said that when I grew up, there would be no army. Mom was right. Now all I want is to tell her that she is always right. I cried, I screamed, and still she is silent.
So you take that phrase, Mom was right. And there it's a direct indictment, right? And it's descriptive of what actually happened in one of those rooms. A child survived, and the mother and father was protecting both of them on top, and they were both killed. And here this comes out, and Mom was right, and I just want to tell her. And she's silent. Very painful, very hard to. This is really hard stuff. And remember, these are people who are serving. They're writing this as a form of therapy. They're writing it as a catharsis, a way to kind of deal with their world. And by the way, just so we don't just let it slide, I don't know if you saw the news, 22-year-old girl who survived Nova committed suicide yesterday. And her family said, she couldn't live with the aftermath and everything that she had gone through, and the bullying and the social media harassment. So
Who
there
was harassing her? I don't understand. Who would harass this woman?
What, are you kidding? Have you been on social media?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm not.
There are trolls that do say terrible, awful things, no matter who you are.
Why not just turn it off? Don't listen to social media, and then you don't know.
Yeah, well, it's easy for us to say because we didn't grow up with it. But the reality is, when I was maybe about a year ago, not this Yom Kippur, but the last Yom Kippur, when I was talking to Rabbi Jacobs and Rabbi Loibin, our two young rabbis, and we were talking as all the clergy, and we were talking about fasting on Yom Kippur because, as rabbis, we don't eat or drink. And it's a long day where we're up there and we're speaking all the time and stuff. Rabbi Jacobs and Rabbi Loibin both said, it's harder for me to give up my phone on Yom Kippur than food and drink.
Wow.
For me not to scroll on my phone. That's how much a part of their lives social media is. where food and drink take second place to scrolling online. It's that much ingrained in them. And, and these are two rabbis who obviously are good students and they've learned, but that's a part of how they grew up. None of us on this grew up that way. None of us understand what the pull is of social media and why it's so hard to get off, even when it's destructive. All right, let's see if we can do another one. I'm going to see if this one I can't do. I couldn't get it turned, but you have it, and you can, if you print it, it's a great one. But this one I can't do right now. It's too tough. Okay. So here we're dealing with, here's the quote is from the book of Ruth, right? We don't know who the author is. Her name is Orit Klopstock. Don't know anything about her. And she quotes from the book of Ruth, your people is my people, your God is my God, where you die, I die. So she uses that as the way of shaping it. So I guess I'll read this one. It's only by chance that they caught you and not me. Your people is my people. Your blood is my blood. Once you were Aden, Netta, and Shani. Today you are Jewish history. For the 6 millionth time plus one, you prove that history always repeats itself. Your body, a destroyed temple, and I, a bird, escaped from the trapper's snare. I am with you. Whenever you scream, I will scream. So she's saying, in effect, I escaped, but I was there, right? I got out. But you are my people, and my blood is your blood. Your scream is my scream. I was a bird and just happened to get away. And most Israelis, to some degree, feel that. They happen to not be there. They happen to not go to the festival. They happen to not be visiting relatives for Sukkot at the kibbutzim in the south. Or they happen to be there. Right? But you can see again the echo of our biblical story of Ruth in this case. Any comments on that?
Well, just from my perspective, the paradigm was so changed to make, like the next day, the very next day, it was like everybody was pro-Palestinian. They justified this. Nobody ever talked about these people. It's shocking. I still kind of don't understand how it got flipped on its head so quickly. Everybody bought the other narrative. It's painful, and this is true. This is their story. They are the victims, and all of a sudden, they're not.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Roger. It isn't everybody, and there was a substantial part of the West that was sympathetic for a long time, and a substantial part of the religious community in the United States supported the Israelis and continues to support them. We shouldn't forget the evangelicals, who still overwhelmingly, but they're not the only ones. There are lots of them, including many in the African American community. But because we Jews tend to focus on the ones that hate us, and we often forget to thank those who are there for us. And I also want to say, no nation has ever supported us the way the United States has. No nation, all through this war. You may not like everything that the government says, but everything that's been done to support Israel is out of any historical precedent for any other nation. We didn't even come to England's rescue as quickly. It took us much longer in World War II to get up the ability to go to England. We showed up in Israel. The president was there 1 week after. The ships were there about a week and a half after. the carrier units. There is, right now, there are 100 boots on the ground. Why do you think those military, the THAAD missiles are there? Because Israel's supplies are running low of its missiles. It's David's arrow, because it's used so many. So we shouldn't forget that. But yes, much of the world turned, and many of the official bodies turned. And it has been painful to see those who turned on us, particularly the left groups, social justice groups, many of them, but not all, but many. Okay, see if we can do one more. Oh, so this takes Hanukkah. Lital Kaplan, cleared for publication. Do you know what that means in Israel? Does that ring a bell?
Something to do with security?
It's not security. They only publish the names of those who died once they have identified and informed the family. And then they say, cleared for publication. And then they publish the name. They don't publish it until it says cleared for publication. They don't have leaks about these things in Israel, but they are official only when they're cleared for publication. So that's what she titled this. And it's all about Hanukkah last year. Okay. All right, who wants to do our last poem here?
I'll read.
Okay.
I'll try. We can pick up on the key. The miracle can't kindle our day's wick, and it's not something worth publicizing. Death climbed through our window, and no Hanukkah we placed on the seam line between home and the public domain could block its way. Death is actually sitting in our living room on the cold floor, spitefully spinning a dreidel of lead, two of its faces erased. The remaining ones rattle with every fall. Happened here, happened here.
So look at the Hebrew. Hayapo, hayapo. What is that? What does it say on the dreidel?
A miracle happened here.
Right, ours says Nes Gadol Haya Sham, right? In
Right.
Israel, the dreidel says Nes Gadol Haya Po. So she takes that phrase, it happened here, but it's not every miracle, B'chol Nefilah, every fall. So Hanukkah is seen as a personification of Hamas sitting in the room, playing with the toys, playing with the dreidel, as if waiting in order to kill those in the rooms. Right? Death is actually sitting in our living rooms. That's how it feels.
Well, that's how it was.
It was, but not during Hanukkah. But yes, it was during Simchat Torah. Yeah, that's how it was. So in Israel, this also tells us a lot about its culture. All of its culture is Jewish. It's Hebrew based. It isn't just showing up for Torah class on a Shabbat morning. This is part of their bloodstream. They didn't study this yesterday and then write the poem. They've lived it their whole life. And she might be 23 years old, but these are just part of her culture, these ideas, right? Okay, maybe that we can't do that. Okay, so this is a little bit of hope. Eliaz Cohen, now close your eyes. All right, who wants to do it? It's a little bit of hope.
I will. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Thanks, Roger.
Now close your eyes. Imagine None of this happened, a nightmare, perhaps a hallucination. That's all it was. Fruit of the poetic mind, of the feverish one. None of this happened. The 1,000 never went up in a storm. Now open your eyes again.
So somehow you've got to think, in effect, maybe it's denial. Maybe you've got to sometimes be in a place where you close your eyes and you imagine a better world. But ultimately, at the end of the poem and the end of life, you got to open your eyes and you got to see. And you got to see what happened, right? That over 1,000 went up in a storm. Okay. You had enough?
It's very disheartening.
Yeah, I know. I'll do one more. It is disheartening. I wish I could find, and I have to say, I looked for, and so did Rachel Corazine. There's very little of what we might call uplift in any of these things. There is this one. Oh, that's really not going to do it. Because that's where they are now. I hate to say it, the reason I wanted to share the poems is because for us, what's going on in Israel is it's way over there, and it's people we may know or may not know, but we're not living it, and they're living it every single day, every moment. I asked one of my we had a Zoom session with one of the retired rabbis who made Aliyah there about 30 years ago. His two children are older; they're in their late 40s now, and they have children who are serving. So my colleague's grandchildren are serving. He was on; his wife was on. The two adult children were on, a male and a female. And in the middle of our conversation, it's a Zoom, a soldier shows up in his daughter's house. We see him in uniform. And she jumps up from the chair and she hugs him longer than just a hug. And she comes back and she's all emotional. And she says, "I'm sorry, I'm so emotional. My son just came back from Lebanon. I didn't know he was coming today." And at the same time, think of it, the grandfather and grandmother who haven't seen their grandson and don't know what he's doing because he can't tell you, and they see him on a Zoom call for the first time in weeks because he was serving in Gaza before. Right? And I asked her brother, what do you talk about at the Shabbat table when you get together? He said, "We don't talk about politics and we don't talk about the war. We try to talk about life. We try to talk about what's going on in our lives, not just the war and the politics. We try to have some normalcy. But in the back of it all is what's going on every day. Because every soldier that dies, they see a picture, hear their story, know the funeral's taking place. Usually they know someone who's associated with someone who's associated with that person. Everything is connected in Israel. So it's much more, what I want us to understand is Israel is in a state of constant trauma. The only ones who are in PTSD are those soldiers who are so injured that they're in therapy, and those who need therapy, like kids and older people who aren't as active and can find time for therapy. And they are providing therapy. But the soldiers are not in therapy, they're in trauma. They don't have time for therapy. I learned this early in the war. There was a soldier named Yoni Heilman who wrote a diary from the front lines in Gaza, and it was published on an online magazine called Sapir. And what he said was, I ran into a psychologist for the military, and I said, how do you give therapy to the soldiers? He said, I don't give him therapy. I need to keep them in trauma. I work with them to keep them in trauma. And Yoni Heilman said, is that even possible? And he said, if they're not in trauma, their lives are in danger. They can't be post-trauma. They can't be thinking about it. They've got to be in it while they're fighting. And then once they're done fighting, then we can do therapy. So you have to imagine that a big chunk of Israel is in trauma. And then there's another group that's in PTSD. But almost nobody in Israel is what we might call living a normal life. And this has been going on for a year, this phase of the long war. It's hard to even imagine. And the good news is Israel is strong. The population is strong. The army is strong. They are carrying out their missions. They may be hurting a lot of innocent people, but they're killing a lot of bad people. And they're destroying a lot of infrastructure that needs to be destroyed. And the society is still functioning. And by the way, I've quoted this before, and I'll quote it again. In the UN assessment on happiness, Israel is number 4 this year. This year, Israel is number 4. The other 4 in the top 5 are all in Scandinavia. Denmark and Norway and Sweden and Switzerland, Finland, they have a nice life up there. They don't fight wars. Their sons and daughters don't go into battle. They have a nice socialized medicine. They have a good standard of living. But Israel is number 4. Right? And I would say, if any of you want to know why, I would refer to you the works of Martin Seligman, Seligman. And you can just Google him, go online and see what he calls, he has an acronym for it. It's called PERMA, PERMA. It's the shorthand for his theory on what makes happiness, real happiness and joy. PERMA, Martin Seligman. You can find it online and you'll find his theory. You can also find his books. They're very inexpensive now. They've been out for quite a while. And that will help explain. The other thing is Dan Signeur's new book, The Genius of Israel, which came out in the summer of 23. He wrote it with Singer. The two of them wrote Startup Nation, and this is their second book together. Those books will explain a lot of why Israel is a happy country, even in the midst of war, and why America is like number 16 or 17 on the happiness chart, even in the most affluent country that has ever existed. We are by far the most strong economy and military and intellectual country in the world, and we are not happy. Our citizens are discontented because we have a different culture, and that culture makes all the difference. So I'll leave you with that. and it gives you some food for thought. Craig,
Sameach.
thank you, and Chag Sameach, and see you at Simchat Torah.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Tadara.
B'kasha.